So today I'm going to show you how to do the shock absorbers, the front shock absorbers on a Chevrolet Astro van and or GMC Safari. Sorry for the noise, I live on a thoroughfare. Anyway, that is the shock absorber, not the McPherson strut. They are shock absorbers. And as you can see, this one is completely junk. For future reference, this is how the bushings go. The concave part faces outward. And yeah, there's the new one over there by Monroe. That's the bag of stuff they gave me with it. And these are all the tools you're going to need. This is going to be a very important piece right here. The vice grip. This will save your life. So remember this. You will need the following beautiful tools to do this job. 1 jack stand to ensure your skull is not crushed by a falling Chevrolet. 1 can of brake cleaner because everything underneath this car is fucking filthy. 1 shock absorber because yours is broken. I would hope so, otherwise why are you doing this? All the associated hardware. 1 long extension and 1 long, I guess, ratchet, because I'm going to use this to put on the nut on the end of the jack and jack the car up in the air, because my tool is missing. You don't need that if you have the tool. I don't have it. 1 breaker bar because the nuts on the bottom of the shock absorber are basically welded on there from years of not being moved. 2 bolts, and you're going to need the bolts for the following reason. 1 longer, 1 shorter, because the bottom of the shock absorber has 2 bolts that hold it in, and you need to compress the shock absorber somehow, so that's how we're going to do it. I'll explain it later. 1 socket that you're going to need of any size to just slip over that to provide leverage. 1 normal ratchet so we can get to everything we need, usually the top of the shock absorber. You're going to need a 13mm short socket, a 14mm long socket, and a 15mm deep socket. These are both deep. This is short. There you go. 1, tire iron, because we got to remove it with a tire. A pair of vice grips to hold the bellow of the shock absorber from spinning in place to allow us to remove the top nut, and a leaf, because this leaf fell into frame. Ooh, fancy. And also, of course, the jack, because how else will you get the car in the air? So let's get started. So place the jack under the vehicle to where this little concave part is touching the concave part of the chassis. And that's it. But you can see how far that's back in there. And that's the reason for me using this giant extension. We're going to go ahead and put that on the end there. On a Chevrolet, they use these little caps over the lug nuts. All you want to do is take your tire iron and carefully twist them off like so. See, they come right off. Don't over tighten these when we put them back on, okay? Now, if you're wondering why these are there, they hold Mr. Hubcap in place. Bye, Mr. Hubcap. Oops. Well, to avoid losing these and all the lug nuts, let's go ahead and put them in there. Now, with the vehicle still on the ground, go ahead and loosen these. Don't remove them, just loosen them. And now that we've got the wheel off the ground, you can go ahead and remove the rest of these lug nuts, just like I did. So here is the area we are going to be working with. Up top here, in this little crevice, is the 15mm nut that holds the actual shock absorber in place. On the bottom right here, you can see them right there. There's 1. On the other side, there's 2 13mm bolts that hold the shock absorber in place on the bottom. And if you look way up in there, it's hard to see. That's the piece that we're going to be putting the vice grip on. Now here we are on the bottom of the shock absorber, and the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the 2 13mm bolts. See, here's the bottom. I can twist it around and around. And you want to pull down as hard as you can, because that's going to give us the tiniest bit more clearance to grab a hold of this bellow, I should say, with these vice grips. So I apologize for the view, but I'm in confined space here. There is the vice gripped onto the strut bellow. Right there, that little thing is the strut bellow. I will try to approach it from another angle so we can get a better look at it. Now here's a better angle. Those are the vice grips right there. Okay, see that? And that is the bellow of the strut. They are vice gripped in place, holding the bellow so it does not freely spin. This little flap here is the top of the strut. I keep saying that. The shock absorber. And if you notice now, when we move it back and forth, sorry for the angle here, folks. This is really difficult with one hand. I can feel the nut coming off. Now to give you a better idea of what you're looking at, that's the top of the shock absorber right there, and that is the nut along with the little rubber bushings and the concave little spherical disc thing that goes on top. And if we take this off, the only thing now holding the shock absorber in place is these vice grips. So if we were to pull it off like this, well, poop. Okay, I got those out. Now anyway, if we were to yank on this, right? Dang, I'm having no luck here today. Anyway, if we go up in here real quick, put our little fingies down in there, remove this little piece, and remove the little rubber grommet. You like my cut there? That's new. Well, you can just pull the strut out anyway. And it's gonna be a bit of a pain in the ass because it's wedged in there. But see this? Ah, there we go. See, that's the old one, all crapped up in there, and when we pull it out, you can see bad, good, yay. Anyway, if you remember how I just yanked the bellow thing off, you're gonna remember to take this out of the hole. You don't want to leave that in there. It'll just clank around and be fucking annoying. Oops. So now we're gonna put the new ones on, and let me show you how that goes. So that's how you put the bottom part on. We're only gonna put the lower disc, which is concave, obviously, facing downward, and then we put the first little rubber diskette on there, little hockey puck looking thing. Now I'm gonna show you up inside here how you align it. You already saw earlier in the video where I showed you that little hole. Well, from underneath, it's the same thing. You can see the little hole if you look up underneath there. Just make sure that you line this up and stick it through. Now let me give you an explanation of these screws. You see, this is the same thread pitch and depth as these two bolts here, which hold the lower bottom of the shock absorber to the actual car, or I should say van. Now, this is important because if you're like me and you just don't have another jack to spare, you need to find a way to compress the new strut. See how the new strut hangs down like a little pair of knockers there? Well, you can't simply push it with your hand because it's new and it works, and it's uncompressible with human force unless you're a freaking lumberjack. Now, if you have more tools than I do, you could take another jack, place it underneath the vehicle, and raise the jack up slowly until it compresses this into where it's flush and you can bolt it. I don't have that luxury. So, see, there they are. They like to live in the bushes. Little cutie pies. Oh, he's looking at me. Anyway, like I was explaining before my piece of crap iPhone decided to stop working, if you have a jack, you can go ahead and just jack this up. But instead, how this bolt works is this longer bolt will clear the hole of both the bottom of the strut and enter the little bolt hole down in there like you see here. So to give a demonstration, right, we're gonna bolt this up in there like that, and we're gonna start to screw it in. Now for the explanation of how this works, ready? And as I turn this and tighten it, it's going to compress the strut all the way up. Now, as you can see, the thread has already run its course, and it has pushed the shock absorber as far as it can go up. Thanks for not focusing, iPhone. Now we need to get the second shorter bolt, which is over here. See this one right here? And we need to shove it in the secondary hole here. And when we do that, this now shorter bolt will allow us to tighten the shock absorber all the way flat. And as soon as we do that, we can then remove this one, put the original bolt back in, and vice versa. Now, do you understand the concept? This long bolt allows me to push it enough up to get this slightly shorter bolt in. And once this bolt is in, which it is now, I can remove this one, put the normal bolt in, and then remove this one and put the normal bolt in. So this allows us to belt, or I should say bolt it back in without the use of a jack. However, I'd highly recommend using a jack. This is a real pain in my ass. So now you can see we've got the bottom bolted in appropriately, as we do on that side. And now we have to come up here and bolt the top of the shock absorber in. This is much easier. All you do is take your 14mm deep socket. Yours may vary depending on the size or the brand you get. And you just bolt it down. So now we have put it all back together. You can see the nice shiny blue shock absorber in there. There's our little friends eating. How adorable. And there's our crappy ass shock. Look how bad this shock is. That is terrible. But hey little guy, what are you doing? Boy, there are kitties just everywhere today. But yeah, you took the tire off. Hopefully you know how to put it back on. If not, reference the video. And have a good day. See, you don't have to pay a bunch of money for some asshole mechanic to rip you off. You can just struggle in the heat for a few hours. Now we have some cloud cover, so I'm cool. But there you go. You know, an actual explanation instead of just a bunch of rambling crap like everyone else on YouTube. So